Hey everybody, it's Awkward and Clueless. I'm awkward. No, I'm clueless, right? I'm clueless.
I think you can be a little
And
bit of both.
and Erica is awkward only because Erica is the awkward angler in her podcast. And and we both uh, we both feel like novices much of the time on trout streams, just like everybody else does, even though I've been doing it for, I don't know, over 50 years. How long have you been doing it?
About five. Good
Five.
handful.
And you're a professional guide, but we still feel awkward and clueless, right?
Oh yeah, much of the.
And yeah, and sometimes I feel like I haven't learned anything in 50 some years. Um, and why should I even be doing a podcast or live events? Because sometimes I feel clueless.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I feel awkward much of the time, and I didn't realize that people that have been fishing as long as you have still feel clueless. So,
And Erica is hardly awkward. Erica and I fished together about a month ago, and Erica was just prancing along the trout streams and putting her cast exactly where it should go. So it was pretty cool to fish with you.
well, thanks. A few tangles in the trees, but you had my back. Thanks.
Yeah, tell me that I don't get tangled in the trees too, Erica. Anyway, we're here to to answer basic questions to help you have more fun and feel more comfortable when you're fly fishing. That's why we're here, and we love teaching and we love sharing. So um, I know that flies confuse and mystify people a lot. There's so many flies when you go into a fly shop and you look through a website and you see all the flies that are offered. It's confusing, it's intimidating, and it really doesn't have to be.
Yeah, it was really overwhelming. Especially, I remember the first time I looked into one of my friends' fly boxes, and I'm like, they all look the same. How do you even know the difference? I had no idea there were so many different flies. So
Yeah, and people have trouble. They don't. They fish a fly and they don't know what it is, and they worry about identifying the different flies, and that just comes with time. And even the sizes are often difficult. What's a size 10? What's a size 16? That comes with time.
Mhm.
It just comes with using them and buying some flies, and you can put little labels on your fly box to label the flies or take pictures with your phone or something, but you will learn them. I often tell people that one of the best ways to learn how to identify flies and hook size and things is to tie your own flies. It will really make you feel more comfortable with picking out flies.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah, I think I kind of got intimidated or really wanted to know everything about hatches right away. But really, then I got confused with matching the hatch and how they all looked the same. And so I just, started just kind of trying new things and observing. And you're right, it does come with time. And eventually figured out that there's different types out there, dry fly, nymphing, and streamers. And
Yeah.
and also just kind of looking at more like attractors versus actual matching. And so kind of learned to have more fun by letting go of needing to have to match the hatch all the time. So that was one thing that I had to let go of in order to spend more time on the water.
I want to answer a statement here from Vadams, who says usually most flies that is very popular. Here, I'll put this up. Uh, Usually most flies that are popular in U.S. and Canada don't work in Europe. What's the most reason why this happens? Well, Adams, I would highly disagree with that statement. If you Erica and I live in different parts of North America. Erica lives in the Rocky Mountains, and I live in the eastern United States. Even though I fish lots of areas, If you look at if you go up into the chat and look at the flies that both of us say are essentials to have, they are very similar. And I guarantee you that this list of flies will work as well in Europe as any flies anywhere in the world. Trout are trout, and wherever trout live, they mostly eat the same insects. They may not eat the same species, but they eat mayflies and caddisflies and stoneflies and midges and damselflies, and wherever they live. And yes, there are certainly local favorites that sometimes work better than others, but they eat the same things and they're the same species. We have brown trout here in the United States. You have rainbow trout in Europe, and perhaps grayling flies might be a little bit different. I know you fish for a lot of grayling, but I would disagree with that statement that North American flies don't work in Europe. And actually, we found that European flies work quite well in the States. We use a lot of the competition flies, the Euro nymphs that we use in the States came from Europe, and they're very effective here. And I often fish some, early 20th century English dry fly patterns in the United States, and they do quite well. So trout are pretty universal.
That's great. I didn't know that.
You didn't know that? Well. Anyway, we posted both of our lists. So if you want, I don't know if you can copy and paste from the chat, but you can certainly write down those fly patterns. And I think what we should do is kind of go through our list, each of us, and why we would pick these patterns.
Sure. That sounds good.
Okay. You want to start?
Yeah, I have my number one fly, which is the woolly bugger. And so I kind of like, I don't have it. I just kind of pulled some out last minute, but nice little woolly bugger here, size 8. And I like olive colors as well, but it's been really fun to just kind of chuck this in there, kind of let it sink, and then kind of pull it and strip it in slowly. So, yep, there you go. There's a nice picture of that.
Let me see. Yeah, there.
Yeah.
So the woolly bugger is also on my list. So, maybe we should alternate, huh?
Yeah, that sounds great.
So the woolly bugger is also on my list. It's a very simple fly. It's deceptively simple, but it just works all the time. It works when fished as a streamer, and it also works when fished as a nymph. These are often extremely effective fished with an indicator, dead drift, with maybe a nymph hanging from it on a dropper. But it's just, and no one knows what the fish take it for. It could be a small crayfish. It could be a bait fish. It could be a large stonefly nymph. It just looks alive in the water, and it just works almost everywhere. I like mine in black. If I were only going to carry one, because we're limiting ourselves to 7 essential flies, right? I like them in black, and I like it with a tungsten head because I like them to sink quickly. But still the same basic fly that Erica picked.
Yeah. Yeah, if I had to pick one, olive, but I do like black as well. It works pretty well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I've noticed it also works in like rivers and also ponds and lakes too. So yeah, not just rivers.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
All right.
Why don't you give another one?
Yeah, I am a fan of the elk hair caddis. I typically go just tan size 14, typically, if I had to pick one. And so that's just a pretty universal fly that works pretty well in any type of water that I've approached or see fish rising. And yeah, I think it's a great fly.
Okay, and I've got a very similar one here. I'll put it up in my vise and give you a close up. Get it a little closer.
I see a comment. Size 8 scares me, especially being used to 12s and 18s. I've actually guiding some folks. They say the same thing. They're not used to tying with different sizes, and so I think just try it out. It's fun, especially when you're not used to bigger flies. Oh, there you go. There's your elk hair. Thanks. Yeah.
Move it a little bit. There. So that's not an elk hair caddis. It's called an X caddis. This one you can see is well chewed and the hook is kind of rusty because I pulled these out of my fly box. And it's very similar to elk hair caddis, except it doesn't have hackle on the body and it has a shuck. You can see this shuck on the back end of it. And this does a good job of imitating an emerging caddis, which fish seem to prefer over the adults. They seem to like the caddis that's just popping out of its shuck. So I really like the X caddis. And yeah, it's a great fly. This and the elk hair caddis, they float very well. They're highly visible. Not only can they look like a caddis fly, but they can look like a small grasshopper or a moth that fell on the water. Fish eat a lot of moths. And, I believe that you could fish this fly for an emerging mayfly as well, because the emerging mayflies have a shuck and they have a wing that's kind of held down along the body before the wings fully emerge. So I think you can get away with it. I think you can get away with it for lots of things. So it's just a good general purpose fly to always have in your box.
Agreed.
All right. Next.
Oh, I think we both have parachute Adams, right?
Yeah, parachute Adams. And we both like the purple version too.
Yes.
Which you'll often see called the purple haze.
And you like size 16, right?
Same.
Nice. Yep.
Yeah, I carry him in I carry him in lots of sizes, but if I were, we're kind of restricting ourselves to one because we're trying to, eliminate the confusion with people. And there's so many sizes you could carry, but if I had one. You said 16 as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of mayflies and caddisflies that are about a size 16. If the mayflies that are hatching are a little bigger than the 16, the fish will probably still take the 16. If they're quite a bit smaller, the fish may not, but you throw it at them anyways and hope that they'll take it.
Yeah.
But 16 is a great all-around size.
Yeah. I've been trying to go smaller, but it gets harder and harder to see, but it's still fun.
The great thing about this fly is it's highly visible, yet it floats in the surface film. The body appears in the surface film. Fish can see it from a ways away. And yeah, it's just there's something about an Adams that is universally appealing to trout.
Yeah. Yeah. I started liking these high vis where you can start to see like a little bit of pink on top or orange.
Yeah.
Those are nice. Nice for my eyes.
Although I believe that white reflects more light than any other color. So if you're fishing these in fading light in the evening, white's still going to show up better. Unless you have a lot of white foam on the water, then it's tough to spot this fly. But yeah.
Cool.
Adrian asks if I ever used a foam post. Adrian, I thought that a foam post would be a great idea on an Adams, and they sold these little foam posts that are mayfly wing shaped. And I bought a bunch of them, and I tied up my parachute Adams with the foam posts, and I found they didn't work as well, and I don't know why. It makes total sense, but I don't think they work as well as hair or synthetic hair for a post. So yeah. Chaz says, I think we should rename that one 80s hair. Yeah.
What was your hair like in the 80s, Tom?
It was longer than yours. No, in the 80s, not much different than it is now. In the 70s, it was longer than yours is now.
I would love to see that.
I never had a mullet.
You were just all business.
No, not really.
All party.
Not really. All right, what's next on your list?
I have a Chernobyl ant. I don't even know if I'd say that right.
I don't have one. I didn't have one in my box, but I think I have one here somewhere.
Oh, I have a really big one that I'm really
okay
excited about.
Yeah, I don't have one right here.
I love these ones.
I thought I had one.
That, or even something like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. These are my
that's actually more like a chubby. That's a chubby Chernobyl.
Yeah. I use one the same. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Chubby Chernobyl. Yeah.
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 Well, it just so happens that that's also on my list. What a surprise. I tie my own version.
Oh yeah.
Which they wanted to name the Rosenhopper because we're going to sell this next year. And the difference in mine is the speckled legs, and also has the rear wing is elk hair, and then the front wing is a synthetic. But it's similar fly, foam body, and that'll be available. Oh, and a hare's ear body. Mm-hmm. But it's basically a chubby Chernobyl with a little bit of variation. Oh, let me make that bigger. There, I can see it a little bit better.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's foam body and a big, highly visible wing is the deal. And boy, these things, if you're gonna use a dry dropper, you can suspend a pretty good sized nymph on these foam flies. They float all day long. You can catch 20 or 30 trout on them and they won't fall apart and they'll keep floating. And they look like a stonefly. They look like a hopper. Fish just eat them. Fish just eat them.
And they're so fun when they do.
James wants to know, do you use floating with the Adams? I have had success with that. Yeah, James, I use floating on all my dry flies, even the foam-bodied ones. Yep, always.
Yep, same.
Yep.
Yeah, I love the chubbies. They're fun. Mostly
they are.
I feel like that's all I'm using in the summertime for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm not ready to quite give it up yet. I use it as an indicator instead for my nymphs.
And yes, JJ, the rear legs are knotted together. Let's see if I can show you that a little bit better. So yeah, I knot the rear legs because it makes it look more like a kind of a hopper leg in the back, a big hopper leg. Don't have to do that. That's just a fancy thing.
It looks fancy.
Yeah, very fancy. Very fancy.
Oh.
All right. What's next?
Well, the most of mine are nymphs, but maybe if you want to talk about your next dry.
Okay, I have one more. I have one more dry, and it's called the Griffiths gnat. And put that camera on. Actually, probably don't need to. I don't need to make the image any bigger because that's a little one.
Yeah.
Does that show? Yeah, that's okay. So the Griffiths gnat is a very, very simple fly. It's just a peacock curl body and grizzly hackle, and it works. It works as a midge. I think it works as a small beetle. I think it works. It will even work during a blueing olive hatch, even though it does not look much like a mayfly. It will catch fish during a mayfly hatch. So the fish see what they want to see in it, I guess. But the Griffiths gnat, if you're going to only carry one small fly, and you do, you're going to eventually, if you fish for trout enough, you're going to need a small dry fly, a 20 or 18 or even smaller sometimes. The Griffiths gnat's a good one to have. And you think if the fish are eating, you think they're eating small bugs and you don't know what to try, Griffiths gnat is always my first choice.
Great. How do you even see that? Do you use an indicator with that, Tom?
No, actually the grizzly hackle shows up relatively well, but you don't always see it, Erica. You just cast it out there, and if a fish rises in the general area of where, you have an idea of where your fly is, you just raise the rod tip gently. Yeah, you're not always going to see little flies. No.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like the Griffiths gnat also.
Yeah, it's a great fly. Cool. Okay.
All right. So kind of going subsurface here, I have a zebra midge, and I'm a fan of the black size 16 zebra midge.
Let me see if I have one. I've got my fly boxes here, and I'm sure I have a zebra midge. Let me grab one.
Yeah. And I don't really know if that imitates anything. It's just nice. It just catches.
Oh, I think a midge larva, mayfly,
Oh, yeah.
Small mayfly.
Yeah. It just is a good solid anywhere I go.
Yeah, this is kind of a variation of a zebra midge, but it's the same. I'll put it in the vise.
Oh yeah. There
So
you go.
basically thread body and little wire and a bead. Couldn't be simpler. But yeah, that's a great fly. It's not on my list, but it would be one of the next flies I would add. If I had if I had 10 flies, this would be on there.
Awesome.
Focus it a little bit more. There, that's better. So yeah, zebra midge, good one.
Yeah.
All right, what's next for you?
Let's see. I have a pheasant tail, and I like size. I'm kind of getting smaller here in my box, but I like a size 20. There's ones with a flashback and a bead head that I like. Yeah, seems pretty consistent all the time.
I think I have one here. Nope. It's in my other box.
I don't have as fancy as a setup as you, but I can kind of.
Yeah, that's good.
Flashback.
Yeah, I mean, a pheasant tail is definitely would be, again, on my list. Would be on my short list as well. I didn't put it on this list, but it would definitely be high on my list. And my kind of all-purpose nymph is a jig fly. It's a Euro nymph fly called the Frenchie, and it actually has a pheasant tail body, and it's tied on a jig hook with tungsten bead, so it rides hook up. This has been a go-to fly for me for the past couple of years, even more so than the hare's ear or pheasant tail. It's got hare's ear in it too. It's got a little hare's ear collar. It's got a little green hot spot. You can get them with pink and red hot spots and orange hot spots. But it's just a good, if you don't know what the fish are taking, it's a great nymph, and you can use it with a Euro nymph technique, or you can just hang it as a dry dropper or fish it under an indicator. Just because it's tied on a jig hook doesn't mean it has to be used Euro nymphing.
Mm-hmm. Cool. It's a good one. I like the Frenchie. I discovered that this summer.
Yeah. The Frenchie's gotten very, very popular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I usually use pink. Pink seemed to be the hot spot color for me.
Pink hot spot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And people will swear that different hot spots work better in different rivers at different times. I don't think I've had enough experience to have any theories about that, but I like the chartreuse.
Nice. Yeah. Chartreuse.
Yep.
Great. All right. I got my last one, and that's a classic San Juan worm. Just a good old red worm.
I don't have any San Juan worms. I don't even tie them anymore. I use squirmies, which is a terrible fly. It's a rubber worm material tied on a hook. I'll put one in the vise.
Yeah, I think San Juan worms are pretty much the only flies that I tie. They're super easy.
So that's a squirmy wormy, and it's it's dirty. It's a dirty fly. But they work.
They work really well.
They work. Some people say it's not a fly, but they're actually not easy to tie to get them to stay on the hook properly.
Mm-hmm.
They tend to break down if you compress them with thread. I saw recently, I think it was Fly Fish Food, where he just slides one on a hook and puts a drop of super glue around the hook and is done with it. That's getting pretty close to bait fishing.
I saw someone just jam on didn't even glue it, just jammed on the onto the hook. Yeah.
Yeah. Admitting to having squirmy is like admitting you have mop fly. Adrian, I have mop flies as well. I know I've got some here. Let's see.
I love the mop fly, even though we had to keep it to 7. It really wanted to be my number 1. I am not afraid or ashamed, especially getting.
So this is my junk box, and you can see there's a bunch of mops in there.
I love it.
My big junk box, squirmies, and I don't have many squirmies left. I lost them all.
Just have a special appreciation moment for the mop fly, even though top 7. It is, I appreciate the mop fly.
Mop flies are, and the mop fly is actually an excellent imitation of a crane fly larva, which are big and juicy, and I think fish eat them. Fish eat them pretty well. All right. So one more, right? I have one more.
Yep.
Okay, my last fly would be, I want to have some sort of big nymph, and this is a Pat's Rubber Legs. Very, very popular. Oops. Very, very popular nymph, kind of a speckled chenille, and some people tie them with just black or white legs. Some people tie them with speckled legs like this, but it looks like a large stonefly, a small crayfish. It's good to have a big nymph. I use these in size 10, and I like them with a tungsten bead so they sink quickly. The combination of a Pat's rubber legs and a worm is a very popular combination fished under indicator, and I've heard guides call it the turd and the worm, because that's basically what it looks like.
That's great.
So anyway, those are our lists.
Yeah. It's a good list, Tom. I've been thinking about Pat's rubber legs. I have them. I just don't fish them often. So I think that's what I'm going to try this afternoon.
Yeah, they work well. They work well everywhere.
Cool.
So, if you talk to me, you notice that Erica's list and my list were fairly similar, and we didn't consult each other before we made this list. But if you ask 10 different experienced anglers what their 7 or 10 essential flies will be, they'll be a little bit different, probably. There'll be 10 different lists because everybody has their favorites. But you start to see a pattern here where there are just certain flies that everybody is going to have in their box. The chubby Chernobyl, the parachute Adams, some sort of pheasant-tail nymph. And there are lots of variations in these flies. People change one color on a fly and they give it a new name, and bingo, there's another bin in the fly shop, right? That's just a little bit different and probably is no better, no worse than the one it replaced. So, don't worry so much about having lots of fly patterns. You will accumulate them eventually.
Yeah.
But to start out, Erica, you and I know that we could take these 7 flies and we could go anywhere in the world and catch some trout.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We might not do as well as the angler that has the local favorite, but we could still catch trout with them and still have fun.
Exactly.
Yep.
Cool.
My favorite fly, Chaz says, my favorite fly is the one that's catching fish. Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, people ask us all the time, what's your favorite fly? And probably the fly that caught the last fish that we caught, right?
Yeah, that would have to be my mop fly.
Yeah. Mine would be a Frenchie. I think that's the last fish I caught was on a Frenchie.
Nice.
Anyway, does anyone else have questions for us about choosing flies, filling a fly box, organizing a fly box? Don't ask me how to organize a fly box, because all my fly boxes look like this.
That's a lot more organized than what mine looks like right now.
No, you don't see the ones that have fallen to the back and I can't get them out of there.
Those are always the fun ones.
Gerardo says my local favorite is PMX. Yeah, PMX is a great dry fly for a dropper. Absolutely. Really good, highly visible, floats well. Yep. I use them a lot as well.
Cool.
Any other questions from the audience? No, not a lot of questions today.
Yeah.
How about the best cold weather winter fly? Maybe some snow on the ground, clear water. I know what your answer is, Erica. Same as mine.
What is that?
Come on. What would you use during the winter, in the middle of winter?
Besides my mop fly?
Yeah. That's too big. That's too big for winter.
It is too big. I like the zebra, or really any of these. Yeah, mostly zebra midge. That's what I'm using.
Yeah. Fish. One of the few insects that are active during the winter are midges, and whether they're hatching or not, they're still active in cold water. And trout eat a lot of midges during the winter. If they eat it all, they're probably going to be eating midge larvae. And the zebra midge is a great one. It's probably the best winter trout fly there is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the pheasant tail also, I would say. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's why I like them, especially pheasant tail year round. And yeah, I both of those, I would say. Yeah.
Adams wants to know how good or not good tacky boxes. The tacky boxes hold flies really well. I find them to be a little big and heavy. I prefer these. I forgot what Orvis calls them. Super slim, I think, because I can carry more of these. I can carry 4 or 5 of these in the same weight and depth that one tacky box uses up. So I carry a lot of flies.
Yeah, mine are really bulky, so I have to kind of limit what I can actually fit in my pack.
Yeah, I'm always looking, to slim down on my fly boxes. The slim, I don't use slim boxes for dry flies. Like for dry flies, really the best flies, the best boxes are compartment boxes because you don't crush the hackles and you can fit a lot of flies in a compartment box. I mean, you can fit a lot more than you can in those foam strips for dry flies. So, and I carry a lot of. This is one of 2 dry fly boxes that I always carry. So compartment boxes are the way to go, I think, in my opinion, for dry flies. And then nymphs you can get in these nice slim boxes because they don't have hackles that stick up. You don't have to worry about crushing them.
Yeah, I like the compartment ones, and you can find them for super cheap also. So
yeah,
lots of options, lots of flies.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that I fish my soft tackles bad, but still catch fish. How would you use them upstream? Gerardo, I would use them upstream just the way I would use a dry fly, except you're not going to be able to see it. So you're going to have to watch the line, or often when fish take a soft tackle upstream, you'll still see a swirl. You'll still see a rise because they're just below the surface. You could also fish them with a dry dropper upstream so that you've got something as a strike or a little tiny indicator. But yeah, they definitely work well upstream. A soft tackle is nothing. Is just a nymph, really. It's just a form of nymph. So you can absolutely fish them upstream. Absolutely, and they can be deadly fished upstream. Tobias, here's a good question for you, Erica. Pheasant tail or hare's ear? Which would you choose?
I'm all pheasant tail.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I like hare's ears, but if I had to pick one or the other, definitely be a pheasant tail. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Marcus says an egg pattern would work to stay with the junk ones. Yeah. I don't carry a lot of egg patterns. I don't use them that much, but they do work at certain times.
Yep. Same. I don't really either.
Yeah. But they're and there's no shame in fishing an egg pattern. You're matching the hatch. If there's salmon in the river or if there's trout spawning in the river and you're not fishing near the spawning trout, there's still going to be eggs in the water column. And so you are matching the hatch. Yep.
Yay, we have some pheasant tail fans.
Yeah. Pheasant tails are big. Well, I don't see any new questions, just the Pheasant Tail fan club. Have you used heron feathers? Marcus, you must be not in the United States because it's illegal to sell heron feathers in the United States, and it's illegal to shoot herons unless you own a fish hatchery or something and get a special permit. So I actually have used hair and feathers that were old, pre 1973, and yeah, it'll work as a substitute for pheasant tail. But any bird feather, large secondary or tail feather will work as a substitute for pheasant tail. I've used feathers from ducks and other parts of the pheasant and turkey wing quills and wound it the same way you would wind pheasant tail, and it works quite well. So you don't just have to have pheasant tails.
Yeah.
Do you regularly carry gnats? If so, do you include a post? Ted, Griffith's gnat is the gnat that I carry. And you can put a post on them. Yeah, you can. I've tied them with a little orange post. Yep. So you can get them that way. Or there's a pattern that Orvis sells that's called the I Can See It Midge, which has a little post. How do you like to fish a mop? Dead drift, right? You don't want to swing a mop. They don't swing very well.
No.
You want to fish it. You want to fish it dead drift, like a piece of worm, like bait.
Yep. I typically tie on a worm to my mop.
Yeah. Indicator or Euro nymphing? Well, Gus, it really depends. Depends on what kind of water you're fishing and what you feel like fishing. I do both, but I would say neither. I like dry dropper.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Yeah. I would definitely do indicator over Euro, but I just haven't really got into Euro nymphing. I'm open to it. Just more, dry dropper.
Yeah, I do them all. I do them all depending on what the water type is like and my mood.
Yeah.
You either fish the waltz worm in one of the many variations. I do. Yeah, I do. I like them I like my waltz worms with a, I guess it's a sexy waltz worm. I use a white bead, a white tungsten bead, and a chartreuse hotspot and hair's-ear. I find it to be a really good fly for small stream brook trout. What about small scuds in quite still water? What is your suggestion? Gerardo, just a little fur. I can actually put one in my vise. A little fur scud can work quite well. A little fur beadhead scud. I have one here. There's two patterns that I would recommend for small scuds, and I'll put them up on my vise. The first one is just a small fur body. Can you see that? Small fur body with a bead head, and you kind of pick the fur out underneath. So very simple, but a very deadly imitation of a small scud is a fly called the killer bug. And it was developed by Frank Sawyer, the same guy that developed the pheasant tail nymph. And the killer bug is just a pinkish tan wool tied on a hook. That's all it is. And I found that to be one of the most deadly scud imitations. It's an old pattern. It's 1950s era. That's old to a lot of you. But the killer bug is a great fly, and you can tie it really small, as you can see. So yeah, those are a couple scuds to try. For those of you, this is kind of a beginner's thing. Scuds are a small crustacean, freshwater shrimp. They're sometimes called crest bugs, scuds. They're a little tiny crustacean that lives in usually in weedy waters. You don't find scuds unless you got some weed in the water, but they're there all year long. They don't hatch out because they're a crustacean, and trout eat them quite regularly.
Mm-hmm.
And Gerardo, leave them or move them. Very slow strip, very, very slow, like slow hand twist. Just draw them back because they don't swim very fast. They just kind of move along. So very, very slow strip. I guess we're out of questions now. I don't see any.
I don't either.
No. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for tuning in today. Those were some great questions. I hope that that we've given you some confidence that you don't need a ton of flies, and that don't worry about learning all the fly patterns and how to identify them. You'll learn to know the ones that you like, right? You won't be able to identify every one. Nobody can. There's thousands and thousands of fly patterns, but just stick with it and simplify your fly selection at first, and then branch out from there.
Yep. Yeah.
Trout are not that smart.
Although lately I'm beginning to question that.
Yeah. Oh, we got a few more questions here. What do you think about check nymphs? Check nymphs work great. They're good. They work all over. Have you ever fished your fly with a half hitch turn on the fly? Chuck, only for Atlantic salmon, the riffling hitch, and it's an interesting technique, but I never used it for trout. Scud color. Aren't pink scuds dead scuds? Yes, they are. But scuds die, and particularly in tailwaters, sometimes they get washed through the dam and they will die and turn pink. But pink seems to work. I usually tie mine in gray or grayish olive, which matches most of.
Yeah, especially with tailwater, for sure. I would use pink. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And favorite color for woolly bugger, Kevin? Erica's favorite is olive, and my favorite is black. Which they can work in any color. Tan's another good color for woolly buggers.
Yeah. My jam's been kind of a thin mint lately. It's actually a mix of the.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The thin mint. Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Okay. That's a fancy woolly bugger.
It is. It's so good too, and it's in the water.
Yeah, I gotta tie. I don't have any of those. I gotta tie some of those. I'm gonna tie them out. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for your great questions. We will see you in a month. We don't know what we're talking about yet, but we'll figure something out.
Yep.
We know the questions that you want to know about. We hear them. Erica's a guide, and I answer questions on my podcast. So we kind of have an idea of what mystifies beginners, and both of us have never forgotten what it's like to be a novice. So we'll help you out. We'll be here to answer your questions and hopefully entertain you a little bit.
You definitely entertain me, Tom. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Bye.